What if I told you that the very thing driving your heart wild with passion might also be the reason you're stuck, confused, or even sabotaging your own destiny? Imagine waking up every day electrified by love, its thrill, its fire, its promise, only to find yourself crashing against the cold wall of reality. Sounds familiar? Don't worry, you're not alone. We've all been guilty of mistaking intensity for truth. But here's the twist. What if love wasn't meant to blind us, but to awaken us? What if the true power lies not in losing yourself in emotion, but in mastering it, riding the wave of passion while steering with the compass of reality? Now, before your brain tries to sneak out the back door, yes, I'm talking to that part of you already planning lunch. Stay with me, because in the next few minutes, I'm going to take you through a journey where we'll expose the illusions, ignite your clarity, and by the end, well, let's just say you won't look at love or life the same way again. Have you ever stood at the edge of something so powerful, so raw that it terrified you? Love does that. It's not polite, not neat, not predictable. It barges into your life like a storm with no warning, flips your world upside down, and dares you to either rise or run. And yet, most of us, let's be honest, don't truly embrace it. We flirt with love. We tiptoe around its fire. We fear the burn more than we crave the warmth. Why? Because real love, the kind that leaves you trembling and awakened, demands everything. It asks you to feel without filters, to show up without shields, and to care without control. Scary, right? Good. That fear is your invitation to go deeper. Now think back. When was the last time you truly allowed yourself to feel love without conditions, without agendas, without needing it to go your way? Most people haven't. We've been trained to treat love like a transaction. Give a little, expect a little, protect a lot. But that's not love, that's negotiation. True love, the kind that sets your soul on fire, doesn't negotiate. It roars, it moves through your veins like lightning, uninvited and unstoppable. But here's the irony. We crave that kind of love more than anything, yet run from it the moment it threatens our carefully built sense of control. Funny, isn't it? We want passion, but only if it comes with a safety manual and a money-back guarantee. Let's reset for a second. Quick question. Have you ever tried hugging a cactus? No? Exactly. Yet most of us treat love like that. Painful, prickly, better admired from a distance. But what if love wasn't the cactus? What if you were? What if the sharp edges you've developed over time, cynicism, overthinking, fear of getting hurt, are the very things keeping you from fully embracing the one thing your heart is dying for? Now imagine what would happen if you dropped those defenses. Not gradually, not someday, but right now. What would shift in your relationships, your self-worth, your life's direction? Here's where the story gets messy and real. There was a time I thought loving with intensity was weakness, that passion meant recklessness. I believed the strongest people were the ones who stayed calm, logical, unmoved. Spoiler alert, that belief kept me numb for years, until one moment, unexpected, inconvenient, utterly unplanned, when someone's honesty shattered my walls. They didn't just say they loved me, they showed it in a way that left no space for hiding. It was beautiful. It was terrifying. It cracked open something in me I didn't know I'd locked away. And for the first time, I understood. Love doesn't need to make sense to be real. It just needs to be felt. Fully. Excitement lives on the other side of vulnerability. And if you're not willing to get vulnerable, you're not ready for love. Not real love. Because embracing love with intensity isn't about romantic gestures or fairy tale moments. It's about courage. The courage to look someone in the eyes and say, I'm here, all of me, even the parts that are messy, scared, unfinished. The courage to stay when it's easier to run. The courage to forgive when your ego screams not to. And yes, the courage to love yourself with that same unfiltered intensity. That part's often the hardest. We're so quick to extend grace to others, but when's the last time you loved yourself without disclaimers or deadlines? Let me throw a curveball. What if the intensity you avoid in love is the very thing that would awaken the next level of your potential? Think about it. Every invention, every revolution, every masterpiece was born not from comfort, but from passion, from fire. So, why do we treat love, the most powerful human force, as something to contain instead of something to unleash? Love is not here to fit your schedule. It's not a background app running quietly while you chase goals. Love is the goal. Everything else is a side effect. Your creativity, your confidence, your capacity for greatness, these all expand when love is allowed to flow without apology. But let's not pretend this is easy. It's not. You will get hurt. You will be disappointed. Some people will not be able to meet you at the depth you offer. And yes, that will sting deeply. But hear this clearly: pain is not the enemy. A numb life is. The pain of loving fully is the price of a life that means something. And that urgency you feel, the TikTok reminder that time is not a renewable resource, is real. Every moment you delay embracing love, you lose a piece of what could have been, that conversation that could have healed, that risk that could have connected, that kiss that could have become a lifetime. So, what now? Do you retreat again into safety or lean into the fire? Because the invitation is still here, waiting, burning, whispering. This is your chance, not just to love someone else, but to love fiercely, to live boldly, and to never apologize for feeling deeply in a world that worships indifference. And maybe, just maybe, that choice will lead you to something unexpected, something beautiful, something that, what if the one thing you've been avoiding is the only thing that can set you free? Sounds dramatic, maybe even uncomfortable, but let's be honest. We live in a world that rewards illusion far more than it values truth. Filters over faces, performance over presence, perception over reality. Every day, we are handed 1,000 chances to abandon what's real just to feel accepted, validated, admired. But at what cost? Because here's the inconvenient truth: truth doesn't care about your comfort. It cares about your growth. It doesn't whisper sweet nothings. It stares you in the eye and says, "Are you done pretending yet?" Let's interrupt that voice in your head for a second. You know, the one already negotiating what truths you can keep buried for just a little longer. Don't worry, you're not being singled out. We've all danced with denial. Why? Because truth isn't just a statement, it's a mirror. And not the flattering kind with great lighting. It shows you everything: the parts you celebrate, the parts you avoid, and the parts you've forgotten even existed. Scary? Absolutely. But that's exactly why it's powerful. Because when you choose to stay grounded in truth, your truth, you stop living for applause and start living on purpose. Let's get real. Have you ever told yourself a lie so many times it started sounding like wisdom? You know, things like, "I'm fine, this is just who I am," or the classic "maybe next year." These aren't harmless thoughts. They're slow burning fuses that chip away at your potential while convincing you you're doing okay. But here's the twist: deep down, you know when something isn't right. That unease in your chest, that restlessness in your gut. It's not anxiety, it's honesty knocking. And the longer you ignore it, the louder it gets, until one day it erupts, not to punish you, but to free you. Truth doesn't destroy, it dismantles illusions, the same illusions that have been weighing you down, holding you back, convincing you to settle. But when you anchor yourself in what's real, really real, you stop playing roles. You stop trying to be everything to everyone. You stop chasing things that were never meant for you. And ironically, that's when everything begins to align. Funny how that works, right? You spend years trying to fix your life, and then one moment of brutal honesty does more than decades of pretending ever could. Let me tell you a quick story, not because it's unique, but because it's common. There was someone I knew who was always doing great. Every conversation started with a smile, every answer rehearsed. From the outside, flawless. On the inside, drowning. But they held on to the illusion like it was oxygen, until one day they cracked. Not with a bang, but a whisper. "I can't keep living like this." That one sentence changed everything. Not because they had a plan, but because they finally stopped lying to others, to themselves. And that single moment of truth, it unlocked the door to everything they thought they had to earn first: peace, clarity, direction. Here's a truth you probably didn't expect to hear today. You don't need another strategy. You need sincerity. You don't need more motivation. You need alignment. Because when your outer world doesn't match your inner truth, it doesn't matter how fast you're moving, you're still going in the wrong direction. And the longer you delay facing that, the heavier life starts to feel. Success turns hollow. Relationships feel forced. Even joy starts to feel like a performance. That's the price of living ungrounded. So if your life feels off track, ask yourself, am I chasing truth or comfort? Let's pause and have a little reality check. Why do we fear the truth so much? Because we think it will make us lose something: a relationship, a job, a reputation, control. But what if the opposite is true? What if every time you choose to be honest with yourself and others, you gain something? Courage, peace, real connection. You gain the right to live without the exhausting weight of pretending. And yes, there's a cost. But the price of truth is never higher than the cost of self betrayal. Now, here's the part no one warns you about. The moment you commit to living grounded in truth, the world around you doesn't always applaud. Some people will walk away, some situations will collapse. And that's not failure, it's refinement. When you tell the truth, anything that was built on a lie naturally falls away. That's not destruction, that's liberation. But don't expect everyone to understand. Most people are so used to the mask, they get uncomfortable around those who've taken theirs off. That's okay. Let them be uncomfortable. You weren't born to keep the peace. You were born to live in truth, and peace follows that. Let me ask you something bold. If nothing changed in your external life, but you became radically honest internally, how much lighter would you feel? How much clearer would your choices become? How many of your current problems would dissolve if you stopped negotiating with your own soul just to be accepted by people who don't even know the real you? Sit with that. Because sometimes clarity doesn't come from thinking harder. It comes from telling the truth that's been sitting in your chest for months, maybe even years, waiting to be acknowledged. You see, truth isn't a moment, it's a lifestyle, a decision you make every day, even when it's inconvenient, especially when it's uncomfortable. It's showing up to the hard conversations. It's admitting when you're lost. It's owning your part without drowning in shame. It's loving yourself enough to stop hiding. And once you start living that way, something wild happens. You stop fearing rejection because you're no longer rejecting yourself. You stop waiting for permission because truth already gave it to you. And maybe, just maybe, you begin to realize that the life you've been searching for out there has been waiting inside you all along, quietly asking, what happens when your fire burns brighter than your vision? What happens when you're sprinting with your heart wide open, but you're not looking where you're going? That's passion without perspective, a recipe not just for exhaustion, but for collapse. Passion by itself is magnetic. It can pull you out of fear, out of mediocrity, out of your comfort zone. It gives you the energy to keep going when everything tells you to quit. But passion alone isn't enough. It's the fuel, not the map. And the truth no one likes to admit is that many dreams don't die from a lack of passion. They die from the absence of perspective. Let's throw in a quick reality check. How many times have you felt unstoppable at the beginning of something? A new goal, a new love, a new mission. The excitement is electric. You feel alive, invincible. And then reality walks in uninvited, holding a giant mirror. Suddenly, all that momentum starts to waver. The path gets confusing, the highs get shorter, the lows feel heavier, and before long, that thing you swore would change your life becomes another half-finished chapter. Why? Because emotion without direction is chaos. Because movement without awareness just makes you tired. You ever see someone chase something with their whole heart and still crash? It's heartbreaking. Not because they didn't want it enough, but because they didn't see it clearly. Passion said, go faster. Perspective would have said, go smarter. But we don't like to slow down for clarity. We mistake intensity for progress. We confuse noise with growth, until one day we're running full speed in circles, wondering why we're burned out, bitter, and still stuck at square one. Let's not sugarcoat it. Passion is seductive. It feels good to feel deeply. But feelings left unchecked become distractions in disguise. They tell you to chase things that glitter but don't last. Let's shake things up a bit. Imagine being in love with someone who's clearly not right for you. Your friends see it. Your family sees it. Even your dog is giving you side eye. But you're caught in the storm because your passion screams louder than your logic. You tell yourself stories. It's complicated, they'll change, no one else will understand me like they do. Sound familiar? Now translate that same pattern to your dreams. How many goals are you chasing not because they align with your purpose, but because you're emotionally attached to the idea of them? That's passion hijacking your perspective. And it happens more often than we admit. There's a point in every journey where you have to pause, not to quit, but to question. Is this aligned with who I'm becoming, or am I just addicted to the chase? That's where perspective steps in, not to dull your fire, but to shape it. Perspective is what sharpens the passion into purpose. It's what helps you see through the fog of excitement and make decisions that aren't just emotional but intentional. It's not the enemy of passion, it's its greatest ally. When they work together, you become unstoppable. When they're separated, you become unstable. Now, here's the twist that stings a little. Some of the most passionate people in the world are the most frustrated, not because they lack talent, but because they lack alignment. They're giving everything they have to the wrong things, building castles on sand, pouring energy into paths that don't lead anywhere meaningful. It's not that they're broken, it's that they've never stopped long enough to ask, is this really what I want, or just what I've been conditioned to want? That question alone can change everything. But most people are too afraid to ask it because deep down, they already know the answer. Let me ask you a tough one. What are you clinging to just because you're afraid of the silence that might follow if you let it go? That project, that relationship, that identity you've built around being the one who never gives up. We glorify persistence so much that we forget discernment. Not everything deserves your fire. Not every fight is yours to win. And here's where urgency comes in. Life is moving with or without your clarity. You don't get to pause the clock while you figure things out. Every day you spend chasing the wrong thing with the right heart is a day you could have spent building something real. But let's not get too serious. How many of us have made passionate decisions that, in hindsight, were complete disasters? That text you sent at 2 a.m., that business you launched based on a motivational quote, that leap of faith that turned into a belly flop? We laugh now, but those moments teach us something critical. Passion can make you bold, but perspective makes you wise. And when the two dance together, something incredible happens. You stop rushing, you stop proving, you stop needing validation. You start creating from a place of grounded fire, intense but steady. Here's where most people get stuck. They think clarity comes before action. It doesn't. Clarity comes from movement, yes, but only if that movement is paired with reflection. Perspective isn't something you wait for, it's something you create. Through asking better questions, surrounding yourself with people who challenge your blind spots, and daring to confront the truth even when it doesn't flatter your ego. It's not easy, but it's necessary, because passion can get you noticed, but only perspective can help you last. So what if, instead of choosing between your heart and your head, you let them work as one? What if your dreams didn't have to be either bold or smart, but both? What if the secret to the life you crave isn't more hustle, but more harmony between your emotions and your awareness? That's not weakness, that's mastery. And when you finally reach that place where your passion is guided by vision, where your drive is informed by wisdom, where your fire is grounded in truth, something unexpected begins to unfold. Have you ever made a decision in the heat of the moment and later asked yourself, what was I thinking? Of course you have. We all have. Because when emotions take over, logic tends to go silent. It's like handing your car keys to someone who just chugged 3 shots of adrenaline and hoping they don't crash. Sounds insane, right? But we do it all the time. We let anger write our messages. We let fear shape our choices. We let excitement sign our contracts. And in the end, it's not just about making mistakes. It's about the aftermath we're left to clean up. Because emotion without reason can cost you more than you ever imagined. Let's talk about that rush, that moment your heart is racing, your chest is tight, and everything in you is screaming to act right now. That urgency feels like clarity, doesn't it? It feels like truth, like you have to say it, do it, fix it, prove it. But that's the trap. Emotions are powerful messengers, but terrible leaders. They're designed to signal, not to steer. Yet, too many people confuse intensity with accuracy. Just because a feeling is strong doesn't mean it's right. Just because something feels real doesn't mean it is. Emotions speak the language of now. Reason speaks the language of forever. Ever been in a fight and said something you didn't mean? Of course, you meant it in that moment, but 10 minutes later, you wished you could reel those words back like fishing line. That's what unchecked emotion does. It hijacks your sense of scale. It turns molehills into mountains. It turns delays into betrayals. It turns I'm hurt into you never cared about me at all. That exaggeration isn't truth, it's distortion. And when you're swimming in it, it's nearly impossible to see the bigger picture. That's where reason steps in, not to silence you, but to center you. Let's pause for a second. How many bridges have been burned not because someone was evil, but because they reacted from a place of unfiltered emotion? Friendships, careers, families, torn apart in seconds by choices made without a moment of reflection. And here's the scary part. Once damage is done, no amount of I was just emotional can undo it. Emotion might spark the fire, but reason is the fire extinguisher. The question is, do you have the discipline to stop and use it before everything turns to ash? This isn't about becoming cold or robotic, quite the opposite. Emotion is human, emotion is sacred, but it must be anchored. Think of a ship in a storm. The waves are emotion, the anchor is reason. Without that anchor, you drift. Worse, you crash. And too many people are drifting through life, reacting to every wave, every whisper, every wound, without ever checking if the direction they're heading even makes sense. Passion is powerful, yes, but without reflection, it becomes reckless. Fear can protect, but without clarity, it becomes a prison. Let me throw a curveball. What if that decision you're about to make, the one that feels urgent, even righteous, is actually a test, not of your passion, but of your perspective? What if the moment isn't asking you to act, but to pause? See, everyone wants to feel empowered, but no one wants to wait. We want immediate action, instant justice, fast results. But wisdom doesn't live in the fast lane. Wisdom lives in the pause between trigger and response. And that pause, it's where your power lives. It's where emotion and reason get to meet, but only if you're willing to wait there long enough. Let's shake things up. How many times have you mistaken fear for intuition? It happens more than you think. You feel something heavy, something uncomfortable, and you say, my gut is telling me, but is it your gut or your trauma? Is it your intuition or your insecurity? That distinction matters. Because the brain doesn't always know the difference between danger and discomfort, between a real threat and a perceived one. Without reason to filter your feelings, you can end up running from growth because it feels scary, or clinging to familiarity because it feels safe. Let me ask something uncomfortable. What are you currently justifying because it feels good, even though you know it's wrong? That relationship that excites you but drains you? That habit that soothes you but sabotages you? That narrative you tell yourself to avoid taking responsibility? Feelings are not facts. They are experiences. They deserve attention, but not control. The moment you let a temporary emotion drive a permanent decision, you hand over your future to something that won't last the week. And when it fades, all you're left with is the cost. But let's not be too hard on ourselves. The goal isn't to eliminate emotion, it's to elevate it, to give it a seat at the table, not the head of it. Emotion adds color to life. It makes us human, but it must be guided by something deeper, something more constant. Reason doesn't dull your fire, it directs it. It asks the hard questions. What outcome am I really after? Will this matter tomorrow, next month, next year? Am I acting from love or from lack? Those aren't just questions, they're mirrors, and they reflect whether you're building your life on impulse or on intention. Let's get brutally honest for a moment. How many opportunities have you lost because you couldn't regulate your reaction? How many times have you let pride speak louder than truth? How many moments of growth did you skip because comfort shouted louder than courage? That sting you feel right now, that's awareness, and that's a gift. Because until you see the cost of being ruled by emotion, you'll never claim the freedom of being led by reason. Freedom isn't doing whatever you feel like. It's having the power to choose what's right even when it doesn't feel good. The clock is ticking. Every day is a choice. Will you live by reaction or by reflection? Will you trust the storm or the compass? Will you continue letting emotions lead you blindly into situations that your future self will have to repair? Or will you stop, breathe, and decide from a place of grounded truth? Because the next time you feel that emotional surge rise, anger, fear, desire, jealousy, will you have the strength to pause and ask,